The most expensive iPhone Apple has ever built is going to launch without Face ID and without a zoom camera, and they want around $2,500 for it. That sounds like a mistake, and it might be, but it also might be the biggest change to the iPhone since 2017, and which one it turns out to be comes down to a single number that almost nobody is talking about. This is the iPhone Ultra, Apple's first folding phone, and it's about a month away. So here is what it is. Folded short, it's a phone, but a shorter and a wider one than any iPhone before it, with a 5.5-inch screen on the front and around 9.5mm of thickness. Open it like a book and it turns into a 7.8-inch display in a 4:3 shapes. 4:3 is the number that matters there because that's the aspect rate of an iPad. So opened up, this isn't a large phone. It's an iPad mini that folds. Rumors is also claiming it will be 4.5mm thin when it's open. The iPhone Air, the phone they currently sell specifically because it's thin. So a device with two screens and a hinge inside it is somehow going to end up thinner than the thinnest phone they make. And the crease, the thing that has been giving away every folding phones ever released. It's reportedly down to about 0.15mm using a new hinge built from liquid metal and 3D printed parts. It's not gone, but it should be shallow enough that you'd have tilt the screen and go hunting for it. To hit that thickness, two things got cut. Face ID is the first. Touch ID comes back instead, built into the power button the way it works on an iPad Air. The reason is space. Face ID needs a hardware module sitting behind the display, and a phone with two displays without need two of them. There's no room for that inside 4.5mm. The zoom camera is the second. You get a 48-megapixel main and a 48-megapixel ultra wide on the back, and that's the whole system. A telephoto lens needs physical depth to bend light, and there isn't any depth left. So the most expensive iPhone in the history will unlock slower and zoom worse than the cheaper iPhone sitting next to it on the shelf. Apple knows that, but they did it anyway because they are not really selling your phone here. Which brings me to that number I mentioned. Apple can only build around 10 million of these this year. The folding display is expensive and difficult to manufacture, and that's the ceiling. Meanwhile, there are roughly 1.5 billion iPhones in use around the world right now. So even if every single Ultra sells out, analytics think it will, this phone still ends up as less than 1% of all iPhones. That odd number decides whether this thing works, and here is why. Think about whoever makes your favorite app. They have limited number of engineers and limited amount of time, and they are going to rebuild their entire layout for a squarish screen that under 1% of their users own. They aren't. They are going to keep building for the phone everybody already has. Developers always build for the majority, which is the same reason the whole industry shifted from desktop to mobile first. And that's the most common complaint you hear from people who already own folding Android phones. The hardware impresses everyone on day one. Then they open a regular app and nobody rebuilt it. So what they get is the phone version staged out with bigger text and a lot more empty space around the edges. The screen got bigger. The amount of stuff on it did not. The Ultra could get hit by these twice because that 4:3 shape changes the outside screen too. It's shorter and wider than a normal phone display. So on an app that hasn't been updated, it's going to look wrong when it closed and stretched when it's open. That's the version of this story where the phone fails. Not a launch, because launch sells out either way. 3 months later, when the people who paid $2,500 start telling everyone their apps look weird. Here is the part that makes me think they will get away with it. At WWDC this year, Apple told developers to stop designing for one fixed screen size and start building for a range of shapes and aspect ratio instead. They called it app adaptability. Apple never confirms product before they launch, so that's about as close to an announcement as you are going to get. And when people went digging through the iOS 27 beta, and they found code referring to fold state and hinge angle on a phone Apple has never once admit exists. They also have the leverage to force the issue. Apple ships around 5 iPhone models a year, so developers can't ignore them the way they ignore 1,000 different Android devices. When Apple pushed the liquid glass redesign, developers adopt it whether they feel like it or not. And there is one more thing, which honestly might the whole point of this phone. The Ultra is expected to be the first iPhone with proper split screen multitasking, two apps running side by side, the way an iPad has done it for years. And that feature is reportedly locked to this device only, not the iPhone 18 Pro, not the Pro Max. If that holds up, Apple isn't charging you $2,500 for a screen that folds. They're charging you for the only iPhone in the entire lineup that can do two things at once. That's a much harder thing to argue with. So $2,500. If what you want is a tablet that folds down small enough to live in your pocket and you can live without Face ID and without a zoom lens, then this is the most interesting iPhone since the iPhone X. And nothing else in the lineup come close. If you mostly scroll text and take photos, you're paying an extra $1,000 for a bigger screen that lot of your apps won't know what to do with for a while. Either way, September just got a lot more interesting.